Well, it's another Monday. We have the whole gang here today. A lot of weird stuff happened over the last 24 hours, including a very big AWS outage that knocked out some centralized stuff, which we'll chat about. But the big story today is, again, where are we in the cycle? And we'll try and make the case of, is this time different or is it the same? Do we have more to go, more to run? And so much more. Talk more about rotations and debasement trades and all the top things on your mind. But before we jump in, Mando, good evening.
Hey guys, good to be back. Sorry I missed last week as well.
No problem. You're a travel junkie all over. Somehow you coordinate your flights during these times.
It was a pretty insane show to miss with the big liquidations, but I hope everyone survives.
Yeah, I don't think nobody got away without a scratch. That's for sure. If you're perping, everybody got a scratch. But the question is, how bad was that scratch? And if you stick to the risk management rules, you were just fine. CTO.
I'm good. It's an exciting time in the market here.
Yeah, I love this time of day because we get to see CTO's room going dark. Every time this time of year, it always amazed me. It shows how long we've been doing this. And Marty.
What's up, guys? How you doing? Good to see you back, Mando.
Good.
Yeah, great. I'm extremely optimistic. Thank God we had the flush. We called it 126 down to 106. We literally called it. And so there's no more leverage in the system. We can go up. Global liquidity is looking good. SPY, gold, all leading the way. Just a matter of time. I think when the government opens, I think we're going to see another move up.
Well, there is, on that note, on leverage, there is leverage in the system. It came back and some wasn't wiped. Like the CME leverage is still there to a large extent and others too. So what happened?
The long-standing leverage down to the 1.8x's was all removed.
Yeah.
So it's only new leverage now, which they already took out pretty much over the weekend, early on Saturday. And that's why we're here. But I mean, there is already, obviously, there's always people are degenerate gamblers. So,
yeah.
And they're very bullish on crypto. So they keep longing. And as long as they're long with high leverage, in the short term, we'll see flushes.
Awesome. Well, let's set the stage. We've got a lot of topics to go through as usual in a very short window of time. This story is called It's Different This Time. This is a chart that shows you how different it is this time. This is the Bitcoin chart since the halving for all the other cycles. Black line is what we're looking at right now today. And you can see, obviously, better to see this way or put on full chart. You can see in the previous cycles, we ran up a lot earlier. The big thing that I take away from this is we did have that kind of sort of double top in the green cycle, which was 2017, 2018. But since then, we see clearly diminishing returns. And if it is the same as the last cycles, we should be done by now. We should be heading into the bear. The big question that everybody has in their mind is, are we heading into the bear? Or do we still have room to run? Or will this be a slow grind up for multiple years? A lot of people are saying we're going to run until 2027. A lot of people say we could run up for another 7 years. A lot of people say we're going to die. Mando, what's your POV on this?
It's been a very frustrating last few months, I think. Maybe even the last year for a lot of people. I think we have underperformed macro now with the move in gold and move in stocks. And now people are looking for a macro overlay to like why we would sell off right now. And it's not really there. There's nothing really blowing up right now in macro. There's some small moves in regional banks or credit spreads, but nothing that would indicate, that we're about to enter some sort of cataclysmic event. It's purely just been longer term holders coming in to sell and following the 4-year cycle. I think that in the next month and a half, that trade will largely have been played out because you wouldn't be selling in December 2025 if you thought it was a 4-year cycle. And I'm hoping that some of these more macro things, we don't blow up until then and we kind of trend back up. I don't think this feels like a top at all. I've been there on the previous tops, and it feels like you want to buy as many coins as you can, as fast as you can, and then when it all turns, you just can't get out. There's like no bid, and it just breaks through every level of support. There's no bounce. It just keeps going. This hasn't felt like that at all. It's felt like this chop where people are giving up, and mentally, and some of like the medium-term trend following indicators, I think, are rolling over slightly. So people are going, oh, you know, this looks bearish. But just in terms of sentiment, this is always the sort of times where, when I look back, I wish I was more risk on. So I still think we've probably got another month of this, but I do think it's a time where I'm going to start adding quite a lot of risk.
Bitcoin risk. Bitcoin risk, Mando,
across the board.
Risk.
I mean, altcoins is always really difficult for me because I think like the idea of just generic altcoin cycles, I continue to think are difficult. But there are certain altcoins I like. But in general, I'm going to be a bit more aggressive over the next month, assuming that there's more of this giving up on the timeline, because I think it's these OG Bitcoin is selling, and we are then trying to find a narrative for why that is, and it's just not there. There's no real narrative other than the 4-year cycle, and I'm going to stick to my guns and say, look, I think that cycle structure, as you can even see from this, has kind of broken down. It doesn't look anything like any of the other cycles. So
no,
and why in fact, suddenly now follow it now seems, I don't think that makes sense.
And if you look at the amount that the whales have sold so far this cycle, it's 120% of what they historically sold. They always keep 60%, but they typically dump 35, maybe close to 40%. But this time they're over 40%, at least some of the OOG whales from way back when. Now, what's super interesting too, CTO, I'm going to go to you next on this cycle because it's on everybody's mind. I've been seeing bearishness actually since May 2025. We are actually under the price of Bitcoin we were in May 2025. We're talking this 6 months ago. And that's what has frustrated people. It's like we've gone nowhere for half a year. CTO, what do you make of all of this? And what does your chart tell you where we're going next? Are we alive or dead?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the key question. Are we alive or dead here? And I think it was interesting. It was 2 weeks ago, Mando, you said that you had talked to some early Bitcoin investors who said that they're going to sell now because, 4-year cycle and so on. And I do think we are seeing some of that. Like the 4-year cycle made a lot of sense in the earlier cycles. If we go back a little to the earlier cycles, the 4-year cycles were very clear. And let's see which one we see it best in. Maybe in this one. They were super clear because there really was a big effect of supply and demand. And, the amount of supply that is minted has a lot of effect on how much the supply is coming out versus how much demand there is. But if we look at Bitcoin today, that effect is not so big because there's less minted. There's been more halvings, so there's less minted. So logically, the 4-year cycle doesn't matter so much today, while it did matter a lot in the beginning. But it could be self-fulfilling. There are people who feel that it's going to happen again, and that's why they are selling according to the cycle. So perhaps we're seeing a bit of that. And some people then front run it. Some people will sell after the 4-year cycle has hit, which it has already done. But if that's the effect, that shouldn't continue after that. So I thought actually that the 4-year cycle would stop playing out already last cycle, but it happened exactly the same. So the question is, will it happen now, or is this the time where the 4-year cycle stop working? And the thing is that I don't know for sure. One thing that I didn't like in the price action, if we look first at 2021, those of you who were here, you will remember it, because there was a legit breakout here in November, right? November 2021, where price, we'll zoom in a little bit, where price went just above the previous all-time high. And it really felt like the breakout. Price closed above there and everything, and it was like a legit breakout in November 2021. But it was all fake. That was actually the top, and price went all the way down to the bottom of the bear market there. And now we had exactly the same thing happening, that price broke out above previous all-time high twice, same as in 2021, closed there. It seemed like a legit breakout, and then price hit down again. And that spooked a lot of people, including myself. But there are also some differences. Like if we look at the 2021, it was quite long time between these ones. You can see that price went into a downtrend and all stuff happened in between. This was in April, this was in November. While this time, it's very close in time. Trend hasn't changed or anything. It's still part of the same move.
And there's no volatility as well. There's no big swings like in the past.
Exactly. There's no big swings.
It's all, I think the big difference is just the ETFs and the bona fide asset it now is, and the consistent bid and the money flow. And then we have the treasuries as well. They are the two things that drive the market. And as I always say, follow the money, because forget cycles, forget everything else. If the money stops, so the music stops, the price will go down. That's it. Retail can't keep a $2 trillion asset afloat. That's my take.
No, exactly. If I can just finish here, the other big difference is that the price movements here are pretty small. Like it feels super dramatic, and it seems bigger because the numbers are bigger. It's like $20,000 and so on. But if you look at the chart, the relative move here from the top to where we are now, it's so small that you guys can barely see it if you're on your phone watching right now. So it's actually not that dramatic as it feels. So personally, I'm fine to wait and see a little bit. If this, if it really is 4-year cycle playing out one more time, okay, then this will break here on the downside. We're not going to miss it. Otherwise, it will climb back up here, and the situation will be clear that we're in continuation. And if I can show one more thing here, I feel that what really has frustrated a lot of people is that everything else has gone up while Bitcoin hasn't. So here is Bitcoin versus gold. A lot of people have felt that frustration. Bitcoin versus stocks, S&P 500 also in downtrend. So that's really what has frustrated. Everything else is going up while Bitcoin has been pretty flat over the past months.
Awesome. Good stuff. Marty, what do you make of all of this madness? Are we going longer?
Yeah, I see it completely differently, guys. This is no longer, people constantly say people, retail. This asset class no longer has anything to do with retail.
Nope.
It's an institutional asset class. This technology has been adopted by sovereigns and institutions. It's the future of financial rails. It's the future of, it's going to remove banking. So to me, since 2023, January 2024, if you look at the chart, go to a daily chart on Bitcoin, there was a strategic move to start accumulating Bitcoin by institutions and sovereigns. And it's pretty much to the book using market makers. 3 moves up, 50% pullback, 3 moves up, 50% pullback, 3 moves up, 50% pullback. We've just done 3 moves up and a 50% pullback. We're just going up. You can draw a straight line from there. It's just a straight line, 45 degrees to the right. Now, in the long term, we're going up with money supply. I think we're in the bottom of the range. I think that flush was to test the 100,000 level, to test for the new floor of Bitcoin, which is 100,000. I think we're just at the bottom of the range right now. I think now we trade up to the new top of the range, which I think people estimate around 200, 250. So to me, this is perfect. I think we're in the perfect position. I just think people obsess with the cycles, even though cycles are man-made. They're not coded into the, it's man-made, the cycle.
Yep.
There is no more cycle. There's a new cycle. We're watching the development of a new cycle. And James, to your point, treasury companies and ETFs don't sell. They buy. They wait for retail to exit in panic, and they buy the coins.
There is a slight caveat on that, because Mart, I'm not having enough coffee. Mando, you know about this too. So about a third of the trading volume for the ETFs is actually hedge funds, and they play the carry trade, and they get in and out when the premiums are juicy. When they're not, they get out. Mando, correct? So some of the money that does go in leaves as well. Yeah. And they're moving large amounts. You'll see them dropping 250 million in a day and then putting it right back in a week later. So
I think the bigger problem,
the all-time high. Sorry, we had the all-time high outflow in the ETF this week, and that it was actually largely to do with that trade unwinding. So Bitcoin funding went negative for a large bit of that. So a lot of people couldn't get out of that trade.
At the end of the day, I think there's going to be a sovereign debt crisis. There's no doubt about it. I think there's going to be a US dollar crisis. And I think there's a strategic move to use hard assets to back debt. And that's gold and Bitcoin. And will it go up like gold? Well, actually, I think Bitcoin would trade like gold if it wasn't for the, unbelievably giant 600 casinos constantly selling ridiculous bets against it and having to flush them. If you take that away, once we get market structure, I think Bitcoin trades with very low volatility, just like gold.
Yeah.
These are the early days. We're early.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the indicators that of exactly where we stand right now. First of all, this is from Crypto Quant. We are slightly in a bearish market, but it reflects exactly what CTO said. There's no volatility. It goes a little bit down, a little bit up, a little bit down. It's no biggie. We've been here before, and much of it is driven, of course, by the liquidation, the tariff tantrums again. That's the light that lights the fuse, the smoke that lights the fuse, whatever. And here we are. So no reason to panic. And this, going back to gold, is really interesting. There's only 3 other times in history where the Bitcoin gold Maya multiple is at its lowest point outside of major crash periods. Those being 2022, COVIDians, and 2018. And we're here again right now. But, this, and we have France, news out of France today that they were downgraded for the 3rd time in a month. Their fiat system, their whole debt system is crumbling. So, yeah, this takes us to the debasement trade. But a few pieces of good news. We'll come back to these stories. I'll drop a couple of things. Tom Lee still is very bullish. And I don't know, like I assign maybe a 0.2% chance of us hitting his price target in 70 days. I'm not sure what he's thinking. I'm thinking maybe he's just trying to pump up the whole crypto market. But Mando, I see you smile at this one. What are you thinking?
I mean, Tom Lee loves these sort of stuff. He loves it. This is what gets him gets the headlines, right? So
on CNBS, yeah, exactly. But then we have another guy, a guy called Eric Trump, like Tom Lee said, Bitcoin's about to go parabolic in the next 75 days. Now, the reason I listen to this guy is because he hears things in the halls of the White House that might be going on. And this, conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat attached. Marty, could there be an SBR? Could there be something that the Trump administration knows? Why would this guy come out and say something so confident? Why would Tom Lee say something so confident? And it's small circles, the Michael Saylors and the Tom Lees and the Eric Trumps. They all chat together. They kind of know what's going on.
Absolutely. I think there's an absolute strategic sovereign level decision to move substantial amounts of reserve into Bitcoin. And, the only reason it hasn't happened is because they're not ready. They haven't passed regulation. There is no regulation in this asset class. And the government is shut down. We're facing political headwinds at this point. Even look at the SEC chief. They're very frustrated right now. They're on a mission to catch up of 7 years of choke point to try and get regulation for this asset class. And now they're facing, democratic resistance and friction, shutting down the government, trying everything they can because they're backed by the banking cartel. So remember, Bitcoin challenges banking. We're facing, I always tell people, they will fight like dogs. And they've been fighting for years now. People have no idea.
Yeah, Pocahontas heavily funded by, as you say, the banking cartel, and is trying to kill Bitcoin her entire last 6 years, trying to kill Bitcoin, and nearly came close.
And so I think Trump is on board, all because of Stephen Moran. I mean, I think Stephen Moran already had this playbook to move into hard assets, Bitcoin and gold. And China is obviously on board. They're buying the most of the gold. And the US has $44 gold certificates. The price today of gold is $4,300. They could basically pull out $1 trillion. And where will it go? Bitcoin. I think this is legitimate. I think that's what they're going to do. And so when will it happen? You can see these two guys saying 75 days. That's 3 months roughly, right? That's the end of the year.
Christmas. Yeah.
Bitcoin usually makes its big moves around January 1st. It did it in 2024, 2025, 2026. It's going to do it again. I think you just got to get through this government shutdown. We've got to get the market structure thing. That, I think, is the most important thing.
Yeah.
The biggest friction we have is these perpetual exchanges with no surveillance and no regulation. And they have the ability, their price. What is the price of crypto? There is no price of crypto. There's 600 different prices right now. And then each DEX weights them based on volume. But there is no price of Bitcoin. So
I just tweeted the delta between Coinbase and the other exchanges. It was like $600 difference.
Exactly. We need market structure. We need some rules. We need some regulation in the price of Bitcoin. The dollar side, remember that one Bitcoin is always one Bitcoin on that closed loop. But on the other closed loop of dollars, it's centralized, opaque. No one knows, and they pump it into the oracles, gets disseminated across the entire ecosystem. Every DEX app, everything DApp just takes it verbatim. That's the price. No one's auditing that price. No one's regulating or surveilling that price. So they can fudge it, they can spoof it, they can manipulate it. And that's what they did last Friday. I mean, we all know that. Even Oracle, even Binance admitted it. Our Oracle system had a failure. Yeah, you made it fail in order to get down to the 1.8x's. That has to be removed. Until that's removed, I don't think the US will commit to the SPR. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I think market structure opens up SPR.
Yeah, the delta between Coinbase and all the other exchanges of Bitcoin is now $700, but I think Coinbase is down, so that could be the problem. But getting back to October, what happens next? This is N squared, and they basically said a few days ago that the 15th is the turning point for Bitcoin in the month. But you can see here, we kind of turned on the 19th, so we're like 4 days late. But the big action in October, historically going back to 2015, last 11 years, is now, today, and then the 27th, 28th, and 29th, big moves up. The question now, when I see this, is it possible that the US government shutdown is delaying the price action for Bitcoin?
100%.
Look, I find it really difficult to go after some of these more macro reasons for why Bitcoin's selling off, because they're not affecting any other market. They're not affecting. Nasdaq is hitting all-time high today. Gold is smashing through all-time highs. And I feel like we've got this overlay of, it must be some big macro reason why Bitcoin's selling off. And no other market's asking that question. No other market is really asking that question. Yeah, there's some worry about gold hitting all-time high, but not that much. I mean, if the stock market's doing what it's doing. I think it's purely an idea of prices driving narrative. And the price, I think, is coming from some of these OG Bitcoiners who are selling. And like I said, I still think we probably have a month to a month and a half of that. Because then well and truly the 4-year cycle will be over. But the idea that this macro thing is driving Bitcoin and nothing else, like no one else is talking about the fact that Bitcoin is really underperforming. Like if you're trading stocks or you're trading gold right now, like no one's like, but OG Bitcoiners are selling. Like it's not in their purview, let's say. So I think it's just a very specific thing to what's happening with us right now.
Yeah,
and you have to believe them or not.
And going back to gold as well, this is what keeps me very bullish, because you have the big banks, you got Citibank and JP Morgan all talking about the debasement and the debasement trade. And when you think they bundled gold and Bitcoin into this debasement trade, and you see this is a historic buying opportunity for Bitcoin if there is correlation. And historically, there always had been. So that's kind of interesting. Let's talk about the things being out of whack. Outage. We had an AWS outage that knocked everything down. Base was down. Coinbase looks like it's still struggling. But Solana was up. Technologists on the line. What do you think, CTO, of this outage?
I've actually not read up on the outage. I was just informed that Roblox wasn't working here earlier, and I can see that the price feed is not coming in from Coinbase and so on, but I actually don't know what happened.
Yeah.
But, stuff go down now and then. Google services roll down.
The point is, how can things in this day and age be so centralized that Coinbase and Base, the most important layer 2 on Ethereum, are dead because AWS decides to go down for 10 hours? Yeah.
I can tell you why. Because it's all about DNS. Remember DNS, domain name services? It's an old construct we were building in the late 90s. Still the thing that runs the internet. Web 2 is extremely fragile. It is like literally the most centralized thing, the internet. Everything runs through AWS's Dynamo database. It's literally one database, replicates the data centers. So whenever you click on Coinbase.com, it routes you to a server based on something in a centralized database. That database failed today. That's a single point of failure for the entire internet.
Yeah. Like it's incredible.
Blockchains can fail. Is there are hard code use DNS, so they go directly, from when you call the RPC, it goes directly to the valid. Oh, that's a pump. That means we got a pump going on. Okay. Anyway, so that's what happened. Centralization of Web 2. Amazon's, too big. It's too powerful. These clouds are a big problem in Web 2, and we need to move away from them.
I see that little
Once
pump.
again, shows you.
Yeah,
Bitcoin's on the wall, James.
Bitcoin just shut up $500. And then typically what
so
always
AWS's
happens.
DynamoDB failed. One database failed, and the whole internet went down pretty much.
But now we have the cycle where Sunday, Monday, Bitcoin pumps, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, it sells off a bit, and then it rallies into the next later in the week. But I don't know if that pattern will continue. We shall see. We can't tell exactly who's buying right now. I know that MicroStrategy is not. They only bought like 200 this week, so it's pretty quiet out there. But let's talk about other stuff. Solana made it. Interesting piece from Grayscale. They talk about the financial bazaar that is the leader in users, transaction volume, and fees. In fact, Solana eclipsed both Ethereum and Binance in fees combined the other day, which is interesting. And that still comes up. But then this koi thing has been posted by Solana 10/20/2025. What does this mean? Anybody know?
I don't know.
Nobody
This is
knows.
what Solana do. They have the best roadshow in the business. They know how to do it.
Yeah.
No one knows what it means. No one knows.
People said it might be the ETF, but I don't really know.
Yeah. The question is, I think Toly and, well, on your last trip, Mando, you were talking to some insiders, and they said, yeah, the ETF is a done deal. It's just a matter of
ETF
time.
is definitely done. Yeah, definitely done.
Yeah.
I did see a headline today which says that Toly may be building a deck.
Yeah, he's building his own deck called Percolator.
Yeah.
It's on his own GitHub. It's amazing. His own personal GitHub. So he's personally building it. That's pretty cool. It's time for the Percolator.
Yeah, because I mean, how many perp dexes do we need, everybody? That's the big question. Let me try and pull this off and share, because share screen. Hold on a second. Here we are. This is the perp dex percolator from Toly. What I don't get is, why would a founder of a chain start building a perp dex? Is he trying to jump in on the Binance Aster action, or does he believe there's a better solution than Drift and Jupiter out there? What's the end game here?
Well, Hyperliquid did it as well, right?
I think he's always been fascinated by Hyperliquid. I think he's trying to make a real, native like Hyperliquid DEX, not these fake DEXs like Aster. They're not really decentralized exchanges at all.
Yeah, because Hyperliquid makes the second most amount of fees of anything in crypto after Solana, which is wild. So could they displace, from your view of the GitHub, Marty or CTO, could they displace Hyperliquid?
I mean, look, I think they could. I mean, look at Jupiter. Jupiter is the Jupiter and Drift, but Jupiter only allows you to perp assets in their JLP, right? You don't have other assets, whilst Hyperliquid does. So I think there is room for a native Solana DEX, perp DEX. There's absolutely room for it. Something that's simplistic like Hyperliquid. And so who's not a better person to do it than the founder himself? Yeah.
CTO, do we need another perp DEX?
Yeah, I think we do. I think Hyperliquid took a massive credibility hit when they went in and did the automatic deleveraging of everyone who actually shorted into the dump. So the people who were actually correctly positioned, I've heard more and more and more people who woke up and thought that they had made the greatest trade of 2025. Turned out the exchange had closed their positions. And people were not happy about that. And I mean, of course, there has to be balance between long and short, but typically the exchange has a market maker or other entity that takes the opposite side here, but here they just closed it. So I think that a lot of people not going to touch hyperliquidity after that, and that means there is maybe space for another DEX.
Interesting.
So today is 10:20, right? Yes,
yes, it is. Yeah.
So this announcement, we need to watch out. It might happen at any time.
And typically, when they make those announcements, that's to fit on that calendar day, which should go back to UTC, which means it should be posted before 5 o'clock my time, which is, what's that, 8 o'clock Eastern time, midnight in Europe nearly. Actually, yeah, it's beyond midnight in Europe. So crazy. Let's talk about this next story. I want to, this one, ETF, because we're touching on the ETF very briefly. A lot of people are still puzzled as to where, first of all, people are frustrated with Bitcoin. They're bloody frustrated with Solana because it's under $200 and it was at nearly 300 nearly a year ago. But this piece of data is interesting. A little chart on the right that I have is it shows you the amount of assets held by digital asset treasury companies. And I'll explain why this is interesting to me. 3.6% of all Bitcoin is held by digital asset treasury companies for Bitcoin. 3.3% is held by whatever that sports thing is with Bitmine, by Toly and the other company, 3.3%. And 2.7% is held by digital asset treasury companies so far for Solana. But Solana is a much smaller asset, nearly 70% is staked. What happens if these things grow, and what happens if the ETFs come and start trying to chomp at that supply that might be very hard to get? Do we get to $300 again, or do we go a lot higher? CTO, I'll give this to you first. What do you think?
Yes, let me show you a Hopium chart here, because I saw someone wrote I'm too pessimistic. So let me show you the Hopium chart of the day. So here is the Solana to USD chart, and it could very well be that we're right now at the bottom of the right shoulder of an inverse head and shoulder pattern. So inverse head and shoulder pattern means that people are buying here, it tries to break out, can't break out, goes down to the lowest point, tries again to break out, can't break out, but this time, the next time, it doesn't go as low because people are buying. They're too stressed to wait, so price turns around here, and then the confirmation of a inverse head and shoulder pattern is when it breaks out from the neckline, which would be around here at about 250 to 260. So in this interpretation, this is a possibility. I cannot predict that this is going to happen, but if this moves up here and breaks out, we complete a massive inverse head and shoulder pattern in Solana, and the pattern target for an inverse head and shoulder is the height of the pattern from the breakout, which would put Solana up in numbers that I cannot even say out loud here.
708. 708.
You can read it on the screen. So, this could happen, guys. People are always thinking that they're thinking too small. Usually what happens is that it goes much wilder. Solana went up, I think from the cycle low, when you bought James at 8, it went up, what is it, like 36 times or something. In the last cycle, from the top down to the bottom, it was minus 97%. It goes much wilder than people think. So I think that those possibilities definitely do exist. And if it breaks out, it can go much higher than people think. Now that I have the mic, can I show one other thing that I think is really, really funny and illustrates this point? That I think it will go wilder than people think. So just checking, you can see this is Polymarket where people can bet. People right now only bet a 5% chance, or maybe even this 8% chance only that Bitcoin hit 170,000. And only 3% chance that Bitcoin will hit 250,000 in 2025. So to compare that with something else, will US confirm that aliens exist in 2021? That is 4%. So the gamblers here on Polymarket thinks that there is a higher chance that aliens will be discovered this year than Bitcoin going to 250,000, which is only 3%. And I don't think that these odds are not correct. Like if this turns out to be a fake and it breaks out and starts catching up with stocks, catching up with gold, it can run hard and fast up. And the same thing with Solana. And people usually think that these things won't happen. It will like go 5%, 10%. Yeah. But usually it goes much wilder when it runs in both directions.
And that you got to thank Jim Cramer for that, because he said aliens don't exist. And he's always wrong. So that means aliens exist. And I think that's what triggered that. We do have a little question coming in, because we don't want to leave the gold to Bitcoin. A lot of people believe the rotation could be happening. Last week, it looked like a very clear top for gold, but it's up again today. I think the central banks, after seeing what happened in France today, they're still stacking gold as much as they can. So I don't think gold has topped out. Do you guys think gold has topped out, Mando?
Mando.
Oh.
But in the same way, when it ran just above 3K, it looked slightly overbought, and then it consolidated for a little bit, and then continued to go higher. I like that trade. I think the up only gold trade, I think I can see why it's like that. But I can imagine that this recent run is probably nearing a little bit of consolidation period. So it's not that I think the long-term trend is over. I just think that we're going to go sideways. I still believe in this move to hard asset.
Yeah, I think your mic might be off as well, Mando. I'm not sure, as I see you have it there, but it doesn't sound like it's on. Marty, gold rotation to Bitcoin?
No, I don't think the bull run is over for gold. I think gold is going quite higher. I think it's a central bank demand. It's not people. I don't think it's banks. I think banks are front running, the failure of the treasuries that back their deposits. I think treasury market is in dire trouble. The US Treasury market, all sovereign debt, and that's the move behind the curtains to move into gold. And I don't think that ends until there's a major catastrophe. So look out for gold to move higher, I think. But the good news is that typically after gold hits its euphoric stage and its blow off top is when Bitcoin tends to start its top, its euphoric stage. And we haven't had that yet. To me, we're just in that, last bear trap pretty much. And then we go into euphoria. And I think my expectations are still Q2, Q3, 2026 will be the euphoric stage. That's when the show will get extremely interesting on Mondays.
Exactly.
But yeah, gold continues to run. I think it's central bank demand. Banks.
Yep. And before we get on with the agenda too, some of the questions popping in here tie into closing out the discussion we just had. Toly and his percolator DEX, is he trying to gain more control of the price of Solana by controlling the perp action? Is that one of the reasons why price is being suppressed? Yeah,
I think it's a very good question. I think people are coming around to the notion and the thesis that the price of crypto has nothing to do with spot buying and selling. It has to do with people going long and short on these perp dexes. Remember, when people go long, the price goes up. When people go short, the price goes down. So the price of crypto is very much almost, I would say, 80% dominant on this incredibly huge ecosystem of perpetual dexes, trading roughly estimates $100 billion a day. People gambling. It's the biggest casino in the world with no regulation. So I think when you understand that as a founder, you probably is like, okay, well, how do we stop that? How do we mitigate that? And one way is to take back dominance from these actors that we don't really understand what their end game is, like Binance. Like, is Binance really about crypto? Do they believe in Bitcoin? Or they're just here to make a dollar into more dollars? We don't know.
They're just here to flash and rack people with Mintermute. I think
they're literally extracting retail liquidity every day. And where are they putting it? In gold? In BNB? We don't know.
They're building a Bitcoin bag. Yeah, it's weird. Let's talk about people like Toly building a perp. You got Mert. I've never seen him shill anything so hard in my entire life as Zcash, privacy coins. My thesis on privacy coins is they'll never garner institutional adoption because governments hate them. And that's always been my thesis from day one in crypto. And now everybody, after all the stuff that's happening across Europe with central bank digital currency plans, digital IDs in the UK, people are getting very scared. And this really helps the whole privacy coin narrative. You need to protect yourself. You need to lock your money away so the government can't confiscate it, can't touch it, can't know about it. As CTO, have you been tracking this Zcash revolution lately?
Yeah, I did feel that many years ago already that the lack of privacy features was maybe the biggest problem in the whole crypto ecosystem. Like if you compare with a bank, if you do some transaction, personal or business, your business partners can't go into your bank account or your company bank account and see all other transactions. And your neighbor cannot go in and look in your wallet. And if that's like a friendly neighbor, maybe it's source for gossip. But what if it's a criminal with a baseball bat? That's not good if they can literally see exactly how much money you have in your wallets. So I felt that that's not going to work. If we're going to use Bitcoin or crypto as a whole for business, for personal holdings, it cannot be that open. It cannot be that everyone in the world literally can go into your wallet and see how much money is there and all the transactions you have ever done with everyone. So I felt that that's like maybe the biggest functionality that's missing. We have encryption solving that for everything else, for internet browsing, for normal banking. But why don't we have that for crypto? So I felt that that's really missing. And then, of course, there has to be some way that you can show it when you want to, for example, for audit purposes, for tax audits or something like that. But it shouldn't really be public on the internet any more than our chats or other banking transactions are public. They're not, right? So I did feel that strongly. The problem, as you say, James, is that the governments feel that, oh no, they're hiding something and we don't know how to audit it. So let's ban everything with encryption. And for those of you who are really, really old, like me, you will remember that it was exactly like that with encryption on the internet. It was illegal to use more than a certain number of bits in the HTTPS in the beginning, because governments felt that they would have to be able to decrypt everyone's traffic. It should be legal to use strong encryption on the internet. And then after a while, they realized that was pretty dumb and they changed their mind. But it was illegal. They did arrest some people for it. So, and I feel that maturity hasn't come yet. If you say privacy coin, the governments will be like, ban it, shut it down, arrest the developer, do something so that stops. And I think, unfortunately, that's still the case. But I do think that encryption and privacy features will become part of blockchain later on. I think so.
And this ties into the whole privacy and everything else. Now you've got a bank in the UK who's monitoring your carbon footprint. Mando, is this wild or what? NatWest.
They're monitoring your carbon footprint? Is it my mic okay now?
They track your spending on your debit card or whatever you have at your NatWest bank, British bank. I don't know how big it is or whatever. And they'll tell you exactly how much carbon dioxide you're using, maybe in an Uber, maybe in an airplane, maybe eating out. And they track it all. And then they'll probably tie, according to this post from Basil the Great, he said they're going to tie this into your digital ID and maybe, hey, you've used too much carbon. We're going to debit your card £300 because you're bad.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. The digital ID stuff is very controversial locally in the UK. It looks like it. I don't know if it will go through in exactly how it was meant to be. Something like Tony Blair's son's also doing it, which I think is kind of controversial.
Yeah,
I do think that privacy is maybe a trend, like a meta here. It has been probably for the last month and a half since Zcash started moving, and there's a lot of pretty prominent people behind it as well. So my guess is that one, the price action's been pretty volatile, but I do think it's one to watch. I've been buying it, but I'm fully expecting that it's going to be super volatile over the next couple of months. I don't know. There's enough OGs behind it. I'm like, this thing could have a little bit more legs to it.
Yeah. Privacy. And then what happens. Can it be tracked, Marty? If somebody is moving, say, their Bitcoin to Zcash, there are people doing that type of rotation right now. Can that be tracked from a technological perspective?
No, it can't.
Okay.
Yeah, Zcash is it's also very quantum resistant. I think that's another driver. Unlike Bitcoin, which definitely needs a bit of work to become quantum safe. Zcash has it by design. So yeah, it's got a lot of technology. Zcash came along after Bitcoin, and it was basically written to make a better Bitcoin. So yeah, it's definitely got benefits. I can see a place for it if enough OGs get behind it. Competition is good, guys. Don't be afraid of it. Competition is always good in technology. Pushes everything forward. So bring it on. I don't personally invest in Zcash, but a lot of people do, and good for them.
It was a 5x over the past month or so, if I recall, which is pretty wild. But a lot of people, we used to talk about having a go bag prepared in the event that Orwellian times hit hard. Should everybody have a little privacy coin in a go bag somewhere, or is that just being too paranoid?
I think the bit that you have to appreciate right now is that, yes, transfer to transfer is zero knowledge, but the idea of you then being able to get the money out or via some sort of centralized exchange, particularly in the West, I think is still going to be a little bit difficult. So it's not like it's this closed system where like Zcash can just be exchanged for dollars super easily.
You can't go to an internet cafe in Bangkok and do it there, can you?
You can't. Some credit cards do allow you to use Zcash, but let's just say it's probably not got the easiest off ramps in huge size. Let me put it that way. So it kind of reminds me of the OG Bitcoin days where often this stuff was traded at OTC back for fiat, and I can imagine that being the main thing if you're looking for privacy, let's say.
All right.
But the system now, all the major on and off ramps in the Western world kind of have KYC around them. So it's more like intra crypto transfers it would really be super valuable for.
Awesome. Now, we all know AI is huge. This is the AI part of the show, but the intersection between Bitcoin and AI, I think we covered about 4 months ago on the show. Now, everybody's talking about it, but I don't see AI agents using Bitcoin to pay for transactions. I think it's still too slow and not scalable enough. That's just my thought. But I do see AI growing the whole pie that many people have said, and how it could grow the number of assets under management. And when I go back, when the number of assets under management goes from $500 billion to $1 quadrillion, and there becomes an allocation to Bitcoin, that grows the Bitcoin market cap and price. This is the closest correlation I can find between AI growing, and the impact on Bitcoin. But there's a twist. What happens if the AI bubble bursts? Will that also crush Bitcoin? So this is kind of like a deeper question here. If you look at my numbers, if we go to $1 quadrillion in assets and there's a 5% Bitcoin penetration, Bitcoin price goes to 2.38 million. If it's a quadrillion and 1% penetration, it goes to 476. We know Morgan Stanley said 3 to 4% would be fine. But let's go around the horn and ask, do you believe in this? And before we get to the AI bubble bursting, do you believe AI will grow global GDP and therefore global wealth, like the money printing, and therefore the price of Bitcoin? Mando, you first.
I do. I don't know if I hear people talking about it as much. Like, that's something that I was kind of surprised about when I went to Singapore. The number one thing everyone was talking about was stable coins, neobanks, TradFi coming in. There wasn't a lot of AI meets crypto stuff that I saw, at least. It's definitely the idea that we have agents and that they're going to be aggressive users of the blockchain. Although a lot of people believe in it and still believe in it, it was a much stronger narrative a year ago. Now it feels like it's gone much quieter. So I don't know when that happened, even though I'm a massive believer in the idea that this is going to be the main rails of which these agents have to use. It just makes complete sense. Google's actually building its own payments platform, L1, for that, right? So you're starting to see that, the infrastructure side of stuff, but I haven't actually seen it make its way to dApps that much, at least not as much as it used to.
Marty, will AI grow the pie for everybody and therefore inflate the market cap of Bitcoin?
I think so. I think that crypto is definitely the sort of financial instruments of AI. That's undeniable. It's not going to be bank money. So with the growth of AI, I mean, I think there'll be a new kind of Moore's law for AI, right? So as AI inflates and gets more adoption and gets, obviously reaps the benefits from faster computers, cheaper computers, I think you're going to see the equivalent proportional rise in crypto in general. Crypto evolution, scale, adoption, etc. So yeah, I believe it's 100% true. And will it increase GDP? Absolutely. Been saying this for years. AI increases money velocity, so does crypto. And money velocity is the economy which powers GDP. So if you want to increase your economy and your GDP, you need to increase the flow of, finance, of the economy, remove friction. And it's just the same effect as when we went from bank tellers to ATM machines, right? You used to have to stand in line to go and get cash. Now you just go put your card in and you get cash. Did that increase GDP? Absolutely. Any friction removed from the current economy will increase GDP. And so I think they work hand in hand. I'm a big believer in that, James.
Yeah, very good. And CTO, so we have the debasement trade afterburner and now the AI growth afterburner. Again, forecasting this forward to the next 2 or 3 years, the future is looking pretty bright, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people think, it hasn't happened. Why was there no synergy between crypto and AI? Nothing has happened. We have to remember, it's 3 years since ChatGPT launched. It's 2 years since Grok launched. It's 1 year since you couldn't do a video generated on AI. Today, they are taking over the feeds everywhere. People see AI videos and they think they are real. And it's 1 year ago, you couldn't make a video with AI. It's happening so fast. It just hasn't come yet. The AI agents are not really autonomous yet, but when they are, they're not going to use credit card payments, guys. They're not going to whip out their credit card from their pocket and pay. So, yeah, definitely it's going to happen. Then those numbers that you showed there, it's also important to remember that we see large dollar amounts there and it seems unrealistic, but dollar might be worth less. And when you see it in that light, it doesn't seem so crazy anymore.
Exactly. You consider yourself debasing at 14% per year and accelerating as we go forward. Now, there was a question.
Touch upon this slightly. This whole idea, no narrative is really that hot. The hottest narrative right now in crypto is kind of this privacy narrative. This just kind of goes back to what I said at the start. Does this feel like a top to you? Does it feel like, oh my God, unbelievable risk taking is happening? Everyone's making a ton of money. I need to invest as much. It doesn't. It feels like everything's just kind of a bit lackluster in the moment. We're waiting for Bitcoin to kind of do something. It doesn't feel like this is a market where we're going to drop 40, 50%. It feels like the market you may keep on trending sideways and it's annoying. But the idea that this feels like a top.
Plodding along.
My comments on that, Amanda, I agree with you. It feels like there was a top in perpetual leverage, and that reached the euphoric stage leading up to last Friday. So that collapse was the end of that euphoric stage. And, we're now back to the spot market. Basically, people are buying the dip. So it's a much more natural and organic flow. That is the problem with these perpetual exchanges. Is it's an artificial price. It's an artificial market. It's ultimately going to be flushed. And we saw that happen. And when it does, these cascades are pretty dramatic and really affect the sentiment of the asset class. But I agree with you, Amanda, 100%.
Someone said something very similar, that they said that on-chain, the market has basically been in a bear market since that Trump meme coin came out. And we were propped up by all the ETFs coming in and buying the L1s. And then it was the perp thing. It's just happened. But now this is nothing really going on. And I wouldn't say this is the market where Bitcoin just drops 30, 40%. This does not feel like that when this happens. It feels so toppy that you want to invest in every single altcoin.
Yeah. And to back you up on that one, Mando, as well, when you look at TradFi coming in now, the Morgan Stanleys, the Citibanks going into custody next year, etc. There's a lot of traditional money still on the sidelines waiting to hit this whole space, which they haven't. Question from 312 for Marty: is AI a bubble? Which ties into this piece. Let's try to show this AI bubble effect. If there is an AI bubble, it'll crash the markets. We know NASDAQ and Bitcoin are correlated. Therefore, Bitcoin price will fall. What is the danger of this? And then enter Jensen Huang, who is a very underspoken fellow. And he says, his conservative projections, we are a couple of hundred, I think is a couple of $100 billion into this journey. And we have trillions and trillions of AI infrastructure to build over the next decade. This is just the very beginning of the AI journey. And you got people like Jensen, Larry Ellison, Elon, all saying this. They will buy as many chips as they can. This is not a dot-com bubble. This is not a 2000 style peak. This is very different. This is the very beginning of a massive transformational revolution. Marty.
That's it. I mean, if Nvidia drops, there will be so many buyers of Nvidia. Like, if you're following at all what's going on in AI at the moment, it's like unbelievable chip demand. And Nvidia, the main issue is maybe that China kind of weans off, but like other than that, like all the major companies are trying to get as many chips as possible. I don't know what is that thing that caused the AI bubble to top, but the idea of selling your Bitcoin because you think that AI bubble is going to top, particularly in hardware, it just seems they're not worried about it. It feels like we're just making that up because OG Bitcoiners are selling because of the 4-year cycle.
Yeah, exactly. Marty, any thoughts from Tim?
I mean,
AI is not a bubble.
No, absolutely not. I think that once again, we're dealing with the decoupling between the technology, the innovation, and the prices. These are two closed loop systems, and AI is the same as crypto. There's the price of AI stocks, which is all speculative, and then there's the actual fundamental, companies and their value, building actual microchips. And if you look at that, it's always going to fluctuate, and that's what bubbles are. It's when the speculative prices of something real, dwarf and reach some euphoric stage of gambling on it, and then they ultimately pop. That's what happened in the dot-com boom. But when you go back to the dot-com boom, was the internet a bubble? No, it's made the world what it is today. Everything is on the internet. So technically, it was not a bubble. It was literally the beginning of the next evolution of the human race. And I think AI is the same thing. But the prices will always decouple. They will do their own thing. Yeah. And I think people always focus on the prices of things as the thing itself. They go, oh, the price of Bitcoin is this, therefore Bitcoin must be that. It's complete bullshit. Okay.
Exactly.
Same as Tesla, James. You deal with it every day. The price of Tesla has nothing to do with what Tesla is doing.
Correct. In fact, I traded through the dot-com bust, and I remember looking at the PE ratio for things like Cisco at 200, and that was kind of wild. But that was the forward. They were already selling more than the world needed. We now have a situation for NVIDIA where the players like OpenAI and Microsoft and Oracle and Elon Musk Industries, they're all fighting over the chips. In fact, I read a piece this morning who was concerned that Elon Musk may not be able to get as many NVIDIA chips as he needs because Sam Altman's going to buy them all. That's where we are. So when people say AI is a bubble, they don't know. And also take into account that NVIDIA is trading at a PE of 30. Mm-hmm. That's cheap. It's super cheap.
In my opinion, the chips and the hardware are doing fantastic. I think the limiting factor now is the network itself. You see today with the AWS failure and the rise of these private networks for financial transactions like 00. I think that the public internet has not really evolved. And, we need to see a lot more innovation. And look at Starlink. That's a disruption of the internet. We need more of that. Exactly. In order, you can compute incredible data, but to transmit it to the user and to the applications and in the future to the AI agents, you need a much faster, it's the reduced latency problem. The internet itself needs to evolve. I'd like to see new disruptive internet companies come along, networking companies. Where's the new Cisco? Where's the new router technology? We know Mark Zuckerberg is laying new fiber. We need governments. We need organizations, global.
00
exactly.
too.
I think 00 is the only one. We need more of that.
Before I forget, links below for these legends, everybody. And we're streaming on all our channels, so you follow us, but make sure you follow these people. So final topic, because we just touched on, we always have 100 slides to be able to pull in whatever we're talking about. And you mentioned something, Marty, very interesting. But over to you, CTO, on this one, debasement trade. And I've been talking about this for a long time. I believe the total addressable market of AI is far larger than that of money, which means the TAM of Tesla is far larger than that of things like Bitcoin. How do you play the debasement trade, CTO? Or do you have half-half?
Yeah, I have both Bitcoin and Tesla exposure. I see like the debasement, I feel that is really like the gold and digital gold, meaning Bitcoin is the easiest way to trade that. Now Bitcoin has lagged, so when saying that exactly today, it's kind of hard to, maybe it doesn't hold credibility, but I still think it is correct. And over longer time frames, I think it will prove so. Tesla, I see more as a like technology innovation, an amazing company, keep innovating, have done great things for the world by making electric cars cool, and people have forgotten, but it was Tesla, no one else who did that. And now they're moving into more AI areas. And yeah, I mean, everyone who has bet against Elon Musk over all these years have had to swallow that later. So I see it as a great innovating company more than a debasement trade. And then when people talk about the stock price and can it go up that much or not, for example, with Elon Musk's compensation package, I think they forget that the dollar is getting less worth because, of course, that helps the share price in dollars.
Yeah. There's an interesting question here that just came up because, again, it ties into our very first topic. Ben Cohen believes the 4-year cycle remains intact, a constant across all markets. Now, let me tell you why it's different. First of all, look at the S&P 500. Look at the NASDAQ. Keeps breaking new all-time highs. Look at gold breaking new all-time highs every 2 days, nonstop. And we're going into money printing, QE, and rate cuts. None of that existed any of the previous cycles. Who wants to challenge me on that or agree with me? Mando.
I'm fully in agreement with that. I don't think, I mean, we have generally, cycles have often been 4 to 5 years in the stock market, but since 2008, they haven't necessarily looked like that just because of what's been going on with money printing. Gold and stocks both haven't followed like a standard cycle. Crypto has, and there is a reason for a crypto cycle, which is the Bitcoin halving. And when Bitcoin's obviously a huge bit of the market, and that supply-demand imbalance is kind of stuck. But no one else is talking about a 4-year cycle in other assets. I keep on saying this. The idea that crypto is going to go through its own 4-year cycle now would be really, really surprising to me, given the correlation it had with every other asset class since 2020.
And this dovetails into AI growing the pie, growing GDP. It floats all boats. It's like money printing. It floats all boats. Like rate cuts, it floats all risk assets. And the correlations are all there. Why can't people see that? This is what I don't get. And this is why I get accused of being a hyperbole. But I'm not. I just look at the data. Marty, are we mad?
Look, guys, I've always said it. Bears are typically people looking for lower entries. Ben Cowen, I'm saying that doesn't mean anything, but he's hoping it comes lower so he can buy more. I think everybody wants to buy more. This is the debasement trade. What does that mean? It means that people are betting against fiat currency and global debt. So what are they going to do? They're going to go to, scarce assets, hard assets. And so watch out for bears. Be very careful about bears. Bears aren't necessarily signaling weakness in a fundamental. They're signaling a desire for lower entries. Okay, so be very careful of this, especially people like Ben Cowen. I don't believe there's a 4-year cycle anymore. I believe that crypto has become an institutional asset, and they're looking for lower entries. Absolutely, they're trying to accumulate. I track wallet activity now for years. When I started, there was 75% of Bitcoin was held by private individuals. Now it's down to 51%. Since that bear market was created by BlackRock. So, and to accumulate back to where we are now. in my opinion, that entire cycle was created to accumulate by institutions, to accumulate 25% of the supply. We're at 51%. That's dangerously close to losing 50% of Bitcoin. And that's why I think things like Zcash blow up, because, but old time cyberpunks are going, hang on, Bitcoin is now held by institutions. Well, so we don't trust it. So we go to another one. What's similar to Bitcoin? Zcash. Oh, it has benefits. I think that's what we're seeing. So beware of bears, first of all. Bears typically don't have much technical knowledge either. They're chart watchers. If you ask Ben Cowan what is Bitcoin, you're going to get a really strange answer. He doesn't even know what a blockchain is.
I think he's actually had some good calls this like I've been following him for his ETH calls. He's done it pretty well. That being said, like I think the 4-year cycle lend is that's the whole reason why we're set up like this. Like there is a big bit of the market here that believes in a 4-year cycle. You have to admit it. And I think by December we'll know if that's true or not.
I think it plays directly into the accumulators' cards, this 4-year cycle narrative. I believe it's a narrative, and I think if I was waiting to accumulate a pile of Bitcoin, I'd love it. Bring it. Everyone thinks there's a bear market. Let's go. Yeah, we'll get all the coins. They're going to drop from 51% to 45% if there's a bear market.
Well, in honor of your T-shirt, Marty, very final point of the day. This was rattling around this morning and has people freaked out. Will Satoshi move any Bitcoin in 2025? This earlier we spoke about Polymarket. Polymarket shot up to 7%. It was as high as 12, 13% yesterday or the day before. Is this just, again, FUD trying to shake people's coins free so they can stack more because they missed the whole bull market? Mando, I see you smiling.
I mean, I dance around these sort of streets a little bit, these prediction markets. And what I would say is if you know poker, you know how to trade prediction markets. There's a lot of this where like, you can act like an insider. And that is a lot of these sort of markets, because a lot of people, if you talk to people who trade these sort of stuff, they're always worried about if it's an insider or not. Is this an insider? Is something going to happen? This is the perfect market for somebody to do this, because everyone's sitting there going like, well, I don't want to sell that now. Right now, it looks like something might happen. So I can't guess anything. But I would say is that if you're trying to make a bluff in a prediction market, this is the sort of thing you'd do.
It's a great bluff.
CTO, do you think this is wild or just BS?
I don't put any attention to it exactly for the reason that Mando said. I only look at the price. And even, of course, even that can be faked, right? But it's a lot more expensive to fake the Bitcoin price. It costs billions maybe compared to putting a trade here on Polymarket.
Exactly. I consider Satoshi's coins lost as well, along with 3.9 million other coins. And if you aggregate those two together, it's basically nearly 5 million coins. There'll never be more than 15 million Bitcoin. People are still losing Bitcoin every single day. And when you add up, Marty, when you add up the amount that the US government has and other governments around the world, the ETFs and the treasuries, they now own 14.4% of that Bitcoin supply, which is large. They are now become very big players. Let's wrap on that thought.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. The US government seized 127,000 more Bitcoin this week, bringing them up to, I think they're number 7 now. They're a large holder, 326,000 Bitcoin. I mean, this is their strategy, budget neutral acquisition. I don't think it's over. I don't think it's a coincidence that happened during the shutdown. And I don't think it's the end. I think the US is accumulating Bitcoin. And at some point, they will appreciate the price just by basically having Trump say there's a strategic Bitcoin reserve.
I dug into that Vietnamese thing as well. And the problem is all the characters that actually sent the money were all nefarious characters, so they don't need to be refunded. You know what I mean? Hi, I'm a human trafficker. Can I have my Bitcoin back, please?
This is what I like about this policy, because suddenly it's because they're more going to be in the confiscation game rather than the acquisition game. They're actually going to go after the worst actors, the worst actors that are using this. And they're going to go after, alongside, I don't know, the FBI or the CIA, depending on where this is done. And they're going to try and break down these sort of ultra criminal rings, which are using Bitcoin. So one of the policies, instead of going after like Coinbase, to go after pig butchering scams out of Southeast Asia, like that's probably a good thing. It helps us clean up crypto too, and the US will benefit from it. So as long as they don't go too heavy-handed with this sort of stuff and they focus on like the true crime bits of the market, I think this is really good.
Yeah. Awesome.
Just another word before we end. Another word to think about. Bitcoin is up 110% this year. Gold is
This
up
year?
50%.
You mean last 12 months, not since January?
Exactly. Sorry, the last 12 months.
Yeah.
I think people need to really zoom out. This expectation of getting rich quick, it just doesn't, it's not a reality. That's why they turn to perp dexes and lose all their money. I think it's take a deep breath out there. Like, this stuff takes time. We're up 110% in 12 months.
Takes
Gold
time to
is
cook.
55. We're double up on gold right now.
Yeah.
Just be patient.
Exactly.
Bitcoin jumps in large jumps, not small jumps.
And
The
CTO
small
DCA
moves
pump
are-
is happening.
Go ahead.
The CTO DCA pump is happening live. So it's been a good show. We try to keep it to an hour. Final thoughts for the week. Will it be usual midweek sell-off we get, CTO?
I try to keep a really open mind here. I actually got some, I love Mondays. I love talking to you, the three of you, and I actually got some new perspectives. And I really, something you said, Mando, for a while ago, like, does this feel like a blow off top? No, it doesn't. Like the blow off top. I mean, now gold continued up. I felt like there was top signs in gold a couple of days ago when those photos of, retail who didn't want to buy gold when the technical breakout was at 2060. They're lining up to buy gold at 4,400 when it looks like a parabolic blow off top or near it. Who knows how long it continues? Perhaps it will continue. But that's signs of top. And do we have that in crypto? No one is interested, really.
Yeah.
So
and gold up 2.3%, $100. Huge move for gold. This is a stodgy asset that's just been absolutely on fire. And we're seeing all the fiats imploding around the world, all the debt crisis happening everywhere we look. Final thoughts. Thank you, CTO. And we love having you here too. We love the mix of everybody. We all learn. We all get more fertile brains.
James, Kevin Hassett from the White House Economic Council on TV just said, I think that the Schumer shutdown is likely to end sometime this week. So there's some hope that the shutdown will end this week. I think that's a pivotal moment.
Then we get our Sol ETFs, thank goodness.
Which would be nice. Yes.
Thank you. We got Marty watching TV at the same time. Incredible. Mando, final word from you, buddy.
I think, I know it's really frustrating, but I do think we probably need a little bit of patience here. I think it's the reason why everyone is very, very uncertain right now is because it like Bitcoin is approaching some of these like longer term support metrics, like the 200-day moving average and like the 50-week moving average, and you're starting to get a little bit worried as it does that. I do think we'll hold above there, and I do think that in the next 6 weeks, like we'll have a bit of a Santa Claus rally. But yeah, I think it's still need a little bit of patience, unfortunately.
Awesome. Don't forget, if as I tried to say before, links below for everybody. Follow these legends, but you probably already are. If not, you can watch this stuff anywhere. CTO's channel. We've got the live spaces all the time, 7 days a week on Marty's show. We got Mando as well, hanging out with Raoul Paul, as Mando Minutes, which I subscribe to, and all those great spicy tweets too, and his deep TradFi insights. Thank you, gentlemen, for everything. You guys have a great week. Stay seated. We're not at an end here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, James, Mando, and CTO. See you next week.
Bye.